Straw Hut Media.
Hi, Rewinders! Thank you for checking out this episode of Release Date Rewind on the Straw Hut Media Network and on YouTube. I'm your host, Mark J. Parker, a film lover and filmmaker, and as you may know, I like to celebrate and talk about memorable movies during the months of their milestone anniversaries. I'm a little delayed with getting this August movie out for you guys. I know it's September already. It's been a busy, crazy summer. Just got back from a week at summer camp, but enough about me. Let's focus our attention on Blade for his silver anniversary. That's right, everybody. The horror action movie Blade came out 25 years ago on August 21st, 1998, and it set a new standard for not only the modern vampire film, but for superhero films as well, which we now know usually always rule the box office. So more on that coming up. Spoilers are also coming up, so if you have not seen this movie or need to rewatch, head to the Max app if you're in the US to check Blade out, along with Blade 2 and Blade Trinity, which we'll be mentioning later in the show. Alright, vampires and victims, put on your sunglasses and get your fangs out because it's time to rewind. All right, everybody, I'm so excited. We've already been chatting for a few minutes. She's back. She has returned. The great Katie Bruno is back on Release Date Rewind. Hi, Katie. Happy August.
Hi, happy August. Almost fall. Yay.
Almost fall. We were just talking about spooky season. It's
Yes.
coming in. The wind is blowing.
This is a good start to spooky season.
It
this
is.
week.
You're so right. I know it's funny because Hocus Pocus I talked about in July, but
Yep.
it's still such a weird mid-July release date that I'm like, I'll talk about it, but I am not in a spooky mood. But now we can get a little spooky. We can get a little dark, gothic, vampires. Yes. And I know we have talked about this movie for 25 years, Katie. This always comes up. We'll
Yep.
talk about your screen name on AOL in a bit. But before we jump back, tell me you're always doing something cool. What have you been up to this summer? I know we were just talking about summer is flying, which is scary. Time is flying. We're getting older and older every day. We need that vampire blood to keep us young.
I was going to say we really need that vampire blood.
Right? I have my vampire T-shirt on today, like my fangs.
I didn't notice. Oh, that's
you
fun.
know, we gotta support the vamps. But yeah, what's going on? How's life?
It's good. It's going. Summer is flying by. Hanging out with friends. Music festival, concerts. I just went to a concert on Tuesday. Queens of the Stone Age, amazing.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, they're always great. And just enjoying summer and working a lot. We were talking about how busy work is over the summer. It really picked up. So, yeah, so just working a lot, hanging out, friends, preparing, and now we're kind of preparing for fall. One of my best friends is getting married in October, so that's we're really starting to get prepped for that. Yeah, so it's been, like I said, it's flying by. It's already
oh my God, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy, and that's why I'm trying to catch up with this show. I know, not like everyone's clamoring for Release Date Rewind, but those of you who are, we're chugging along. We got some.
There are people
good stuff
out there. You're getting.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
Oh yeah, they're good people, and I thank you all. Like Katie, you're a listener and a talker as well. Katie, you've been on the show a lot lately, and I'm so thankful.
I
love how
said the other day, she's like, "Oh, another time." I'm like, "I know, people are gonna get sick of me." Sorry,
no, you're like one of my main correspondents. It's like you and like Kit Sheehan. I'm like every few months, I'm like, "Can you come back? We gotta talk about Blade." And it would be a crime if I did not talk about Blade with you.
I know. Because when we talked about this months ago,
yes.
and said Blade's coming up. I said, Mark, if you do Blade and I am not on, I'm going to come up and burn the whole state of Maine down because in my rage. No, but I like you have because come on.
Oh, I would feel so guilty. I would feel so gross if I was like, I'm going to talk about Blade and I'm not going to. Katie's on too much. I'm not going to bring her back. That would be so gross. No.
All movies, that's the
of
one,
all movies. This is like your movie. So I am so excited to talk about it with you. I rewatched it last night. I know you rewatched it this weekend with friends, which I love that photo you sent. I got to post that. When was the last time you had rewatched Blade?
So honestly, it's been my obsession. I've probably seen it about 100 to 200 times, and
you have not.
I could tell you it's at almost 100. It's at least almost 100. But counting TV, watching it on TV, watching it with my friend because my friend was equally obsessed in high school. We watched it every single weekend. So during sophomore year. Yeah. So, but since I've watched it through, it's probably been like a good maybe 10 years, maybe a little more.
Yeah,
You know,
it's been a long time for me. I had remembered some key moments, some key lines, which we'll talk about. But wow, watching it again was a total time capsule. I haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it in 10 years, I probably haven't seen it
It's been a minute.
maybe close to 20. Well, I know that the third movie came out in 2004,
Yes.
almost 20 years ago. So I'm sure I had rewatched it then and probably after. So maybe like 15 years. It was a long time. So to relive it and to relive your obsession, my love for it, this was a fun one. And it really kind of started the kind of, it was sort of ahead of its time because obviously it's Marvel. It was Marvel's first successful film years before, right?
Kicked off, I think, comic book movies. Yeah.
We had like Tim Burton's Batman, which this was sort of similar, very dark, but this really kicked off, especially for David S. Goyer, the writer who then wrote Batman Begins, which we saw in theaters. Like it kicked off the really dark, moody, serious Batman comic book movies, like, you know, because this was in the era of, still love it, but you know, we had Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and we were getting a little crazy, you know,
and like cheesy and bright colors, and I still like kind of love Batman and Robin. You know, it's awful, but it's like fun. But they mentioned, like, when I was reading about this movie and getting it made, and they said like Batman and Robin was such a flop in terms of like critics and fans. So they made Blade, and they're like, well, here we go, and it's a totally different tone, like it's hard R, like it's
yes, it is. I had forgotten.
I feel like to make it.
I mean, here you and I are at 11 years old seeing this movie, and we love this movie, and it is quite a hard R. I mean, a lot of F-bombs, a lot of violence, but it's not too violent because I'm fine with my blood. Of course, I love my horror.
It's more martial arts fighting violence, and
absolutely
blood, but not. I never feel like it's like outrageously bloody. Like
it worked that fine line where I think if they had more, you know, biting and blood spewing, then I think it could have been like, whoa. But no, totally appropriate for this kind of content. But yeah, the F-bombs and, you know, there's not a lot of sex really at all, but we'll talk about it. But that scene towards the end when Karen sort of gives herself to Blade to bite her, and I had forgotten but remembered as I'm watching it how it's like kind
physical. It's like, ooh,
it's very physical. I'm like, whoa, this is almost like a sex scene, almost kind of like a rape. Like, whoa, I literally kind of had to pause. I was like, whoa, all right, that was something. So yeah, they really go places. But okay, let's set the scene, everybody. We're going to go back. We are rewinding to August 21st, 1998, when Katie and I were just wee little children, and we were so excited for this new vampire movie. Keep in mind, everybody, August 98, we were waiting for, I believe it was season 3 of Buffy to start, probably in a month or so, month or two, like late September usually was when the shows started. So we know Buffy was huge.
Vampires were big.
Vampires were so big. It's so funny how there are a couple similarities to Buffy with this movie. You know, the way the vampires are killed, how they just sort of, you know, disintegrate is kind of similar. And I believe Whistler, love Whistler, we'll talk about him.
Yes.
He even calls Blade, he says, "You are the chosen one." I'm like, literally from Buffy.
I know.
So it's kind of perfect. I just wonder how what Joss Whedon and Sarah Michelle Gellar and the WB thought of this movie. Like, okay, you're kind of taking a couple of our lines, but you know, it's different enough, you know, but that at least was a big thing in our young lives. And so here comes Blade. So everybody, here we go. I'm going to jog your memory and I'm going to tell you what was going on at this time, August 1998. On the news side, Bill Clinton, just a couple days before this movie came out, August 17th, 1998, Bill Clinton confesses to everyone, to the American public, that he did indeed have sexual relations with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. He had a televised State of the Union kind of thing at his desk, and he comes clean after lying about it earlier. So that was all over the headlines, right? That was all over the news. On the music side, we'll turn to some lighter stuff. On the music side, That Boy Is Mine, Brandy and Monica, was still number one. That was the song of summer, and it still is such a good jam. Good. Now, Katie, whose side were you on? Were you on Brandy's side or were you on Monica's side? Or did you love both?
I love both because remember at the end, I love the music video too. The
Yes.
guy showing up, I think it's Brandy's door, and then she opens it, and yeah, and they're both there, and he's like, oh, and I was like, girl power.
Yes. You're so right.
Yeah, I neither because he was playing both of them, and then they're like, but then they're getting patty, and then they both realize, what are we doing?
Exactly. Oh my God, I know. It's such a great little story.
This, like, stupid trash man. Like, no.
Yes. I love that you remember the ending. Yeah, it is them at the end. Oh, talk
watch
about
that video a lot.
superheroes. I know that music video was iconic. What a moment in our lives, right? Absolutely. And how funny, Mekhi Phifer was the guy. And later in 98, Brandy and Mekhi were in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So I assume that had something.
I totally forgot he was the guy.
Yep. Okay. Absolutely. So that was still the number one song for months, guys. Like the song of summer 98. But how fun is this? Another absolute classic award-winning song. Lauryn Hill's doo-wop, That Thing. Remember? That Thing. What another stellar music video. That had just come out earlier in August 98. So that was starting to hit the radio waves. People were really starting to catch on to Lauryn Hill. Of course, she had done Sister Act 2. And so she was in, obviously, the Fugees, so she already had a following, but this was now her breakout year. So that was on the radio, and I thought you might like this, because this brings me way back to our youth, hanging out in the neighborhood. Never ever had, remember All Saints, that song, Never Ever?
I have that CD. I think I might still have that CD. Totally, yeah.
That was in the top 5 songs. I think it was number 4 the week this movie came out. So that was really having a moment. What a catchy tune by All Saints. I think they were a British girl band, right?
Because they, I think, came out after Spice Girls.
They were sort of like, trying to go for the Spice Girls thing with, I think it was a group of 4 ladies, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it was, and I think when we talked about Spice World, All Saints was mentioned in my research for like girl bands that came out after the Spice Girls, because Spice Girls kind of paved the way, and I believe they were one of them. So
and I believe, speaking of Spice Girls, since you were on for Spice World, of course, by this time I'm pretty sure Jerry was already out of the band. They were already making music as just the 4 of them without Jerry. So I know. But then now it's funny because now Jerry's full Spice Girls, and it's Posh is the one that's like not really in the group, sorta sometimes. So
reunion,
but anyway,
come on.
I know, reunion rumors. There's rumors. We'll see. Something's gonna happen.
If that happens, we're getting tickets. I mean, it's gonna probably have to sell our houses, but we can get tickets.
It's probably going to be like limited shows, probably just 10 across the globe. We're going to have to go to London, which would be really fun, actually.
It would be fun.
So, let's think about that for sure. Yeah. So that's on the music side. TV side, I thought this was fun. August back then in 98, you're not really getting new TV. Back then, everything was repeats, nothing to watch. However, late August, right around the same time, That 70s Show was about to have its series premiere on Fox. They premiered it around like August 23rd, if I remember correctly. So we were seeing commercials for that. That's obviously a big sitcom. And then the movie side. So besides Blade, other popular movies at this time, which I always love to compare and see what we saw back then. Saving Private Ryan was huge. Yeah. I admit, a movie I still have not seen.
You haven't?
Whoops. No, I know it's like amazing.
It's very good. It's a war movie. Like, if you don't love war movies, but like it's more than that. It's very good.
I don't dislike war movies. I'm not drawn to them all the time. And especially back then, I was like, oh yeah. Now as an adult, if it came out, I would totally go see it. But but I do really need to check out Saving Private Ryan. But there was that. There was Something About Mary, of course. Cameron Diaz. That was huge all summer long. How Stella Got Her Groove Back was huge. That had just come out. That was a big deal with Angela Bassett and Taye Diggs. That was when Taye Diggs really hit the scene. Yep. How funny, Katie. We're talking about Marvel movies. The Avengers, but not those Avengers. The Avengers with Uma Thurman. And
I saw them in the theaters.
Did you? I remember that. That was like a thing. Yeah. That way, and it looked so good.
The Avengers, the new Avengers, the people forget there was another Avengers even that had nothing to do with.
Absolutely, different movie. It was her and Ray Fiennes, Sean Connery. Yep, exactly.
So that we were like, this is not that good, but I liked all of them. Just the movie wasn't.
Well, I'm trying to remember because great cast and it looked great. I mean, Uma was like on top of the world at this time, between this and then Kill Bill. Like, she was just so hot and so awesome. And of course, Poison Ivy, going back to Batman. But the Avengers, I think what made it not so good, if I remember correctly, was it was kind of like accidentally funny. Like, it was a weird like spoof, but not.
hokey. It was like
Yeah.
kind of goofy, hokey. Like, yeah, it was just, just didn't work.
Yeah. So that was out. That had a little brief moment. Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage. Ever After with Drew Barrymore. I remember that
One of
was
my
a big
favorite.
thing.
I
Right.
love Ever After. It's one of my favorite. Oh my gosh. I've seen
Yeah.
that one probably 100 times as well.
Oh my God, I love that. I know Drew had on her talk show not that long ago a
Yes.
reunion. Did you see that with
The
Melanie
two
Linsky?
sisters.
And
Yeah.
yes,
It was
that's
so
fun.
cool. I was so
I
happy.
love that she does that on her talk show. She brings people back from different movies. I think that's so smart.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a thing. And last but not least, Halloween H20 or H2O, even though it has nothing to do with water, that had just come out in early August. That had, not as successful as you would think. I mean, it made its money, it had a moment, but it was never number one. It's not like how the Halloween movies are now, where it's like these big juggernauts. But that came out, and I remember seeing that in theaters, and I just talked about that on my friend's podcast, Back to the Blockbuster. Did you see that one in theaters?
I think I rented it. I think I maybe saw you guys maybe first time.
Yeah, I'm sure we watched it together at some point. Yeah, I remember seeing that one with my mom. I know, it's such a good sequel. I rewatched it for Back to the Blockbuster, which you'll hear that episode probably this week. They talk about it for the 25th, and it's a fun rewatch. Oh my gosh, Josh Hartnett, his hair.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. But in comes Blade. In comes Blade, which is the focus of this episode. Enough of those other movies. Katie, I'm going to throw it over to you. In your own words, I'm the studio exec. Pitch me Blade. What is Blade about?
Okay, so it's set in a reality where vampires exist, and it's about a half vampire, half human hero, kind of anti-hero a little bit, dude who's on a mission to rid the world of the vampire scum. And it's more of a modernized vampire, because before, like up until then, it's been more like Interview with the Vampire type stuff. Yes. Supernatural, gothic, romantic. This movie's like, fuck that shit. No, it is. These vampires will just kill you. This is like,
these vampires dance.
They dance.
But they do. Oh my God, we'll talk about that rave scene. But these vampires party. They are like,
yeah, it's a whole new take on, and they're kind of, they're brutal and they're violent, and there's not really romance. It's not like I said, like the vampire movies we had before were very supernatural, and and I love them. Don't get me wrong, I love Lost Boys. I love Interview with the Vampire. Oh, yeah. It's like so different. But anyway, so that's, it's sleek, it's modern, it's violent. And that's Blade.
Yeah,
so.
It's sleek, modern, violent, and dancing vampires. Yes, exactly. We'll be right back.
Tonight, they awaken. A secret race, hidden here among us.
Now, on your latest rewatch, Katie, do you feel like it's dated at all? Because I actually was sort of surprised. It's ever so slightly dated. It's very 90s, which I love. But I think it holds up pretty well overall, all these years later.
I think that is no cell phones. So, like, when Karen's at her apartment and she's picking up her dial-up phone, I was like, oh, that's like, other than that, because the way it's filmed, it doesn't feel dated on the most, other than, like, the phone part. But, like... Yeah.
That's a good point. I forgot about the cell phones. And maybe it's actually a good thing that they didn't show any cell phones, because I feel like old cell phones maybe would date it even more, you know?
These block phones, like...
Right, yes, with the antenna wiggling, that might make it feel even more, but because when you think about it, so many 90s movies, I mean, the late 90s were pretty sleek and cool, but so many 90s movies still at this time could still feel a little dated with fashion, but the fashion in this movie, everyone's wearing black or just super sleek, fitted,
and even, like,
so...
Blade's outfits, it's all armor and like a trench coat, which is, it's like always works. Like, and every vampires are all wearing black, and like black never is going to go out of style. So I completely agree, because looking at it through, haven't seen it in a long time, and it isn't late 90s movies. Yeah, I thought the fashion, it's very subdued. So I think that's why it kind of just continues to work, because again, black pants with black shirt, that's never going to go out of style. It's
classic. It's kind of like, they're all kind of dressed in this classic eternal even Whistler with like how he wears, I think, like a black leather like vest. He's like this tough guy.
People still wear those. Like he's wearing like a sleeveless shirt and a black leather vest, like, and like jeans or whatever. Like
it totally works.
Yeah, so it works exactly. And so it's a very subdued wardrobe.
Yeah.
And
I
even
think
the city
also,
itself is sort of subdued, so you don't see like modern, the technology.
yes,
But it's very desolate, and so it works, I think, timelessly. If that
you're
makes
right. We don't really see like computers or other technology. We
no,
don't even really see a TV. We see like an old computer in Whistler's kind of shop, but
yeah.
I think it's
And in the
supposed to look.
library, when Deacon has
Yes, that's
like
right.
again, it doesn't feel that old. Like it just looks like
You're
like
right. Yeah.
and same with
This cool
yeah.
digital transcoding or whatever he's
Yeah,
doing with
with
the,
the
yes.
with coding, I was like, that doesn't look that old. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of because it's like an old parchment, so the parchment is what it is. Like,
Right.
so it's just and writing on the side, so it's not like, oh, that writing looks old. Like, no, it's just typing.
Yeah.
And then Pearl's place has like the computers around it, but again,
Pearl.
we'll talk
Yes,
about
you're
Pearl.
right.
But
Oh,
yeah,
we'll talk about Pearl. Yeah, you're right.
like that tech
She or he or it has,
androgynous, yeah,
has all those screens. You're right, which those feel old, but again, it kind of feels cool because it's like,
yeah.
well, yeah, a big obese vampire in like a basement somewhere would have these
Like
old.
computers.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. What a scene. Okay. So we're going to talk about all those moments in a minute. Now, Katie, I'm going to just kind of talk about, where our stars were in their careers, how this movie got started, and feel free to chime in if you know anything as well. Okay. So like we said, this was Marvel's first successful film. The character Blade was created in 1973 for Marvel Comics by the writer Marv Wolfman. Love it. And artist Gene Colin. And Blade was a supporting character in the 1970s comic The Tomb of Dracula, which I just love. If I was around in the 70s, I would absolutely be reading that comic.
I've
Do you know
read
what
that.
I mean?
I've read the
Have
Tomb of
you?
Dracula. Yeah, 'cause of course I did. Blade Obsessed. Hello.
Oh my God.
I never
Love
read
it.
the solo series of Blade, but I've read the
Okay.
Tomb of Dracula, and they're
Wow.
fun. They're more
Yeah.
supernatural though than the movie.
Okay.
And Blade is actually English instead of American. Which
Oh,
is
interesting.
the
Well,
original comic.
that makes sense because back in the 60s and 70s, we were having that whole wave of more British Dracula movies. You know what I mean? Like with,
Yeah.
all those guys. Yeah. So that's interesting. Wow. I love that you read it. I'm not surprised at all. Very impressive. Okay. Now, Marvel Studios was starting to develop the film in early 1992. And I thought this was funny. Maybe you saw this too. When rapper/actor LL Cool J was interested in playing the lead role.
Yes.
Did you see that?
I
Yes.
love
Going back to Halloween H20 when he's there
Yeah.
as the security guard, which I could totally see him in the mix, but I think it would be too goofy.
No, and yeah, I think I saw him in the running, and then but David S. Goyer always had Wesley Snipes in mind.
Yeah.
The studio had presented others like Denzel Washington, Lawrence Fishburne, which Matrix connection. with
Yes,
Lawrence
another
Fishburne.
Matrix connection.
But
Yes.
but yeah, David S. Goyer was like, no, I want Wesley Snipes. I wrote this in the script with him in mind. So I'm glad they went with that.
Oh yeah, he's a great fit. Every now and then, Wesley, watching it with my 2023 eyes, every now and then I'm like, all right, like he could have done a little bit better with that line or whatever, but
Yeah.
no, he is Blade. And like this
Yeah.
has obviously become, with the trilogy of movies and everything, this has become one of his like career highlights is Blade, of course.
And Blade's such a hard character to play because he's very stoic and serious, but there's like some comedy here and there.
Yes.
And
He's able to, like I love how
hard character, I feel
with he smiles and every now and then he has like some attitude when he kills the vampires, which I love. Like there's one that he just like pushes, out of the way.
That's such a great,
It's a great move. Yeah. So yeah, it is a tough, I agree with you. It's a tough role because you have to be so serious, it's so heavy without being corny.
Heavy. It's Yep.
But then every now and then you get to have like a line, and I wrote some of these down. He says motherfuckers a good amount of times, which I feel like you have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Lawrence Fishburne totally can see it, and we saw him in a similar kind of style a year later in The Matrix. And then Denzel makes perfect sense, but Denzel I think was just way too highbrow to take something like this on. You know what I mean?
Not at that time too. I mean,
No.
he was like Oscar and
Yeah.
or Oscar winning, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see. It would have been a different movie. I don't know, because I was imagining with both, and I was like, I don't know. Denzel would have taken a different. I don't know, because he's just a different type of actor, and
he's so good, so nuanced. I just feel like he'd be like, he might actually be kind of bored by just being so stoked.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like
exactly.
he's gonna want like something real interesting to do. So yeah, great idea, but No,
And
this
he
is
already
meant
I think he already did Virtuosity and was like scarred by that. So he's like, no more, which is another movie.
another movie.
We don't have to do that anniversary. We could just have a private session and talk about Virtuosity.
Make it Russell Crowe. Oh my God, what
But I think he was like scarred by that. And he's like, no more sci-fi movies for a while.
yeah. Honestly, you're probably right. Yeah, he probably was like, all right, I had my fun. I'm ready to go back to like the other stuff. New Line originally wanted to do Blade as something more like a spoof, which is so interesting.
Very.
Because I'm trying to think, and maybe that's because of like Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. Maybe like
a horror comedy, action horror comedy,
which I could see. That could be fun, but
well, see, I view that as almost like Deadpool. Like Deadpool's like action. I wouldn't say horror, but it's comedy, but it's violent, and so they were maybe trying to do. But yeah, David S. Goyer, I think was the one that was like, no, like
this is serious.
Glad because I love the tone of the movie, so I feel like if they try to make it funny, it would have. I think it would have worked.
The third film ended up becoming more of a horror comedy, which I still had fun with it. I mean, wow, that was like Ryan Reynolds. Like wow, funny.
Part of my next obsession.
Smoking hot. Yes, exactly. Jessica Biel. I mean, like and Parker Posey was in the third one. We'll talk about the sequels at the very end. We can mention them, but I know that leaned way more funny and was not.
It didn't work. In Blade 2,
exactly. Parker Posey was chewing the scenery, and Blade 2 was pretty serious. I remember.
Blade 2 was more serious, but a little more. I loved Blade 2. Wesley Snipes could be a little more comedic in it, but it was just enough. Like it just like certain scenes, but Blade 3 just was too much. Like
too campy.
Too campy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's the hard thing with Parker Posey. I mean, she's
love
her to death. But it's hard because then, Scream 3 she did, and that was getting definitely a little campy. And I mean, she is excellent, but it's almost like we got to just rein you in just an inch, just come a little closer, And even when I remember years ago, we saw the Superman Returns movie.
Yes, we saw that together, I think.
We saw that together, yes. And Parker was in that. And I remember I was also like, okay, her scenes are kind of a different film, Yeah. So, I love it. I think it's great that they were like, do whatever you want. But
sometimes not.
Sometimes I need you to just read the script as is, Parker. Don't go off script. But no, so let's talk about David S. Goyer for a second. So we know he ended up having a massive career. This was still kind of in his earlier years, but he worked on the big Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I mean, this guy has changed superhero films between Blade and Batman Begins and all that, right? Mm-hmm. But before Blade, he had just previously written Dark City, which I did love. That came out, just earlier in 98. Yeah.
That was 98. That's a underappreciated, I think, sci-fi.
Yes, that was actually on my list of films to possibly talk about, but I was like, it's a little under the radar.
It's under the radar. I loved it. I have it
very interesting.
I believe. I think I have it in my DVD collection. I loved it, but a lot of people don't know about it, or if they do, they're like, meh. It's like you either love it or you're whatever, or you've never heard of it.
And I feel like Dark City, not that these movies are that similar, but there was Dark City and Gattaca, like two kind of sleek sci-fi movies around the same time. And I feel like people, leaned more towards Gattaca, but Dark City was very interesting, very creepy. So David S. Goyer wrote that one. And before that, he had written The Puppet Masters, not the little demonic, killer puppets. This was the other one that actually was really interesting, but should not have been called The Puppet Masters. Do you remember this one? It was a sci-fi like alien one where there was like, it was very Alien the movie, where like it was like this gross thing would like attach to people and then like manipulate their minds and take over their bodies. Do you remember that one at all?
I don't know if I remember that. I probably saw it at 1 a.m. on Sci-Fi at some point.
Honestly, you probably did. It's with some stars I can picture, but I can't think of them right now. But I know Donald Sutherland was in it, and I remember his casting was sort of it was fitting because it's actually more in line with like Invasion of the Body Snatchers than
when you said that Donald Sutherland, I'm like, oh, so it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Totally. Yeah. So that was like mid 90s. So he had written that. So he definitely was, in this sci-fi kind of horror, thriller, action vein of stuff. So that's David S. Goyer. The director, Stephen Norrington, he had previously directed, his feature debut was Death Machine. He wrote and directed that. And he had actually done tons of special effects, makeup, and design on big movies. The Witches with Angelica Houston, he worked on that. He worked on, like, I saw in the 90s, even like a Hellraiser sequel, Waxwork, like all different fun horror movies. He was working in special effects. So not that many movies as director, but definitely was in this world doing some cool stuff. Yeah. Stephen Norrington, he's a British guy. And then let's move over to the actors real quick before we move on. Actor and producer Wesley Snipes, who we were just talking about. So this is what he was up to in the years just leading up to Blade. Earlier in 98, he starred with Tommy Lee Jones in U.S. Marshals.
Yep, I saw that in the theaters too. I saw a lot.
Did you? Yes.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
Oh, Katie, you and I, together and separately, we were at the movies literally every week. It would be a special occasion if we were not at the movie theater. It's so funny because now
in my school planner, I would have like what movies we needed to see that Friday.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I remember it. Oh my God, the list
coming out this Friday. Which one should we see?
Yes, we would have to decide. Like, okay, what are we seeing Friday and what are we seeing Saturday? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, U.S. Marshals was earlier in 98. Murder at 1600, I think that was 97. That was a big deal. He had also done Money Train. I think that was with Woody Harrelson, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean, absolute classic that still, is talked about today. Tu Wong Fu. He was in that in drag.
So good.
So good. And
I love that he was in that. I love
that.
I love that movie. And,
it's so cool that those guys,
Yeah.
Patrick and John Leguizamo, I mean, the three of them are truly iconic. So it's so awesome that the three of them said yes to that wacky movie, right? Agreed. So that's what he was doing, and now Blade. And then
one of my favorite, Demolition Man.
Demolition Man, yes, that was a big one. He was probably mostly known for that for a while,
Phoenix, yep.
Yes, with Sly Stallone and Sandra Bullock in one of her early films.
Movie. I love that movie so much.
It's so fun. When I guess I missed that. That was like early 90s. I think that just hit.
That was 30. Like 93.
Yeah, I probably missed it, but this is our little shout out. Demolition Man. Iconic.
We love you.
But we love you. Absolutely. What a fun sci-fi early 90s thing. Now let's move over to the real star, Stephen Dorff. Stephen Dorff. Katie, before we talk about what he was up to, now is the time you have to tell everyone, what was your AOL screen name when we were kids, and why was it called that?
I hate you so much. It was D&D Lover 12 because it was Deacon and Dogs, and I was 12 when I made the AOL account. You and Allison Cook. I saw Allison Cook yesterday, and she's like, "Your screen name." I'm like, "I know. I'm gonna probably bring it up."
Oh my God, absolutely. First of all, you have to be on the show for this movie, and we have to talk about your screen name, Deacon and Dogs. I still crack up. I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, oh my God, that screen name. And you had it for a while. I mean, because this was
still around.
It's still, I'm sure. Yeah.
AOL account there. I just never.
You probably have D&D Lover 12 at AOL.com, right? Because that was back in the day. Yeah, when the screen names were the same as your email. A little later, I remember in high school, you could and everyone had like a million screen names, and you didn't have to have an email. Oh my God, that's so funny, Katie. Yes. So tell me, what about, now, did you know Stephen Dorff before seeing this movie? Probably not, right?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Because before this, he was sort of in smaller films. He was in he had just done a movie with Harvey Keitel called City of Industry. He was in Blood and Wine with J-Lo. I remember that was a little bit of a thing.
Really good. Yeah.
Yes, that was a good sort of noir mystery kind of thing. And he was in the smaller film I Shot Andy Warhol. Plus, I have to shout out.
That's a bizarre movie, but I like. Yeah.
A bizarre indie, yeah. So he was definitely in that indie world. I know later he did Cecil B. Demented, which also makes me think of I Shot Andy Warhol. Yeah, so he definitely has done all sorts of things. But I also have to shout out in the early 90s before this, he was in one of my fave thrillers, Judgment Night. Do you remember that?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Do I remember? I've seen every Stephen
You've
Dorff
seen every,
up until when I stopped becoming obsessed, which was 2000 whatever 2 or whatever.
Yeah. You probably saw Cold Creek Manor when his abs were popping out of the screen. Remember Cold Creek Manor?
Yeah. Cold Creek, yeah.
With Sharon Stone, yes. I mean,
he wasn't fucking around.
It's funny how Stephen Dorff has always been hot, but as he got older, actually, he got more buff and. But now, tell me, Katie, what drew you to Stephen Dorff when you see this villain on screen when you're 11? What were you thinking? Tell us.
So I already loved the movie, and I loved Buffy and like Angel. So I
Yep.
kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
that like badass vampire guy. That was already, that that was like I was like the
Oh
villains and
yeah.
like the edgy, and then
You
so
also
like
love Johnny Depp, which is the
I
same kind
did.
of
That
guy.
was a little after Steam Door. Yeah, kind of around the
Okay.
same time. Love, yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just love the bad vampire, hot, sexy guy, great hair, like
Great hair. Oh my God, Katie, the
I love
hair.
his hair.
I
It's so
love how it's like short on the
yeah,
everywhere else, but in the front it's long, but it works. His hair is
yeah.
so good in this movie.
Yeah, it
Yes.
just drew me. I was like, "Ooh, this guy's like okay,"
Mm.
and I love the movie too. It helped that the movie was also really great
Yes.
and like exciting, and I'd never seen anything like this, and
Yeah.
so I loved the entire thing. But yeah, that I was like that guy's kind of hot, and I'm like 11, so
Yeah.
I'm like just discovering like, ooh,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But,
He was probably one of your sexual awakenings, romantic awakenings, I would assume, right around this time. Maybe not your first one, but this was an age for us where it was like, oh, okay,
when we
I'm
were all
noticing
coming,
you.
and all of us, yeah, we would talk about like these hot, actors,
Oh yeah.
whatever, singers, and we were starting to, in that middle school, early middle school.
Yes.
Because it's 98, we were in 5th grade, I think. So
Yeah, we were going into 6th grade. We were young. Yeah.
Yeah, 5th into 6th, yeah. So for sure. Yeah.
Did you have? I mean, I can remember, but did you have Steven Dorff like on your wall, or like did you have pictures of him everywhere? Like,
Sure. Yeah, I had pictures of Backstreet Boys, Steven Dorff, David Boreanaz, like all up on my wall. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
oh yeah, David was so smoking hot as well. Still looks good, of course.
Yeah.
And it's it's funny that because I didn't think about that until just now talking about David Boreanaz. Yeah. Steven Dorff's casting is great because I have to say he's an awesome villain. He might just look kind of like this skinny hipstery guy,
not threatening, but then you're like, oh,
but
no.
wow, he's like
Psychotic.
he's ferocious. Yes, he's so quick to like snap. He snaps a lot, and he's got that great pale skin, and he's just very kind of like he's perfect, and I can see why he got you because he looks kind of like the lead singer of a band. Which is so good for a
They went with
vampire
a really
villain.
good look for that because originally in the comic books, Deacon Frost's character is an older, white-haired, bearded guy. So I know we've talked about this with 90s, the obsession with youth, going younger.
Yes.
But I think this going younger was a great move because it made the movie feel fresh and like, I think that change in Deacon Frost's character, like making him younger and kind of looking like a singer of a grunge band or something, like worked for me, worked for me, obviously, but it worked for the movie. I feel like it made it feel younger and fresher.
Katie's sitting in the audience, like fanning herself, like,
I didn't see this in theaters though.
wow. Okay, I was gonna ask. So you did not see this in theaters? I did. So I'm pretty sure then I saw it with my dad. Yeah. Okay. So I saw this before you. Wow. I wonder if I can't remember. I wonder if I was like, oh my God, Katie, I saw Blade. And I wonder if you were like, damn it, I want to see it.
Probably. Yeah.
So you rented it.
Okay. With my parents and my brother Seamus, I think maybe like the family gathered. Yeah. And we all really liked it. Like we all were like, oh, that's because it was so different. We're like, oh, that was a really cool movie.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally.
With the lust for power,
we should be ruling the humans.
That knows no bounds.
The world belongs to us, not the humans.
They have no fear. But one.
At one of my Halloween parties, I know we put this on. I just can't remember if it was the main film we were watching or if it was like we put it on after. Because I think it was the year. We watched one of your
parties for sure. Yeah.
Yes, I think it was the year. It was the third and final Halloween party. We put on Blade, but I can't remember if we put on Blade first and then Blair Witch Project or vice versa. Blair Witch and then Blade. I can't remember, but I know that was the double feature in 99 once I had it on DVD.
Yeah.
Because 98 we watched I Know What You Did Last Summer. 97 was Scream. Yes.
Scream.
Yep.
You know, your party. Always like I saw Scream at your party, and then
yes. Iconic, I have to say, iconic. But anyway, so that's Steven Dorff, everybody. So Steven Dorff is rocking our worlds, great villain. We'll talk more about his scenes and lines. And then the last actor I just want to shout out is Chris Christopherson as Whistler. Love Whistler. Love Chris Christopherson. He's so good in this movie. Although, remind me, Katie, because I haven't seen the sequels in years. So I know we're jumping all around. People know the spoilers. I am so sad when he dies. I love Whistler, and that scene when Steven Dorff is beating him up and kicking him, and then he
violent,
spits on him, like
yeah,
that is.
I know. So when I watched with my friends on Friday, the spitting, my friend was like, "Oh God, of all things, spitting." I'm like, I know that is a dirty fight. Like that was
dirty. You're so right. It's vicious. He is vicious, and
that's
so
my Deacon. He's just a vicious guy. No,
that's
I know
Katie's
that
Deacon
scene is
Frost.
really, I remember being upset too at that scene because I loved Whistler. He was like a grandfather. So I was like, oh no, not Whistler.
And then we have the bloody sheet over him, and so I thought already like,
good,
oh, he's just dead.
Motion reveal, like that's such
really
a
great scene. And then that long pause, and then we realize he's still alive, but barely. And Blade cannot kill him, cannot put him out of his misery. So Whistler kills himself. Oh, it is dark. It's so sad.
But he doesn't actually die.
Yeah, he doesn't actually die. So let's talk about that because I can't remember. How is he in 2 and 3? Because I even remember, I'm pretty sure he's in 3. Is he in 2? So how does he come back?
See, so he did shoot himself, and how they explain it in the second one is he was too far gone, so when he shot himself, it healed because he was already turned.
Oh.
And then Blade, because after the whole fight with Deacon, and that was like a long time, so they got him, and like the vampires like took him somewhere. So at the end, and again, kind of jumping ahead, originally the ending when he's in Moscow, that was going to be Whistler attacking the woman. They changed it. There's a whole thing there's ending differences too that they went through. But that was going to be Whistler. They changed it. And then so in the second one, Blade finds him because Blade, it turns into like, oh, he was in Moscow because he's looking for Whistler because he probably went back and was like, where's the body? What the fuck? Yes. That I believe. Yeah, I wasn't able to rewatch the second one. I mean, again, I've seen that one probably 50 to 60 times, not as much as the first one. So I remembered most of it, but yeah, that, and then he finds Whistler, and then Karen made the cure, so he's able to like cure him. And
smart. Yeah, I can't remember. Do you remember if Karen is in the sequel? I know she's not in the third. No, yeah, Karen.
Back, yeah.
She's only in the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love her. Originally they were going to cast like a white actress, and I'm so happy Wesley Snipes really pushed for a black actress.
Interesting.
Like it would have been like, of course, like we can't have too many black people on screen, so I'm glad that they Wesley pushed for that.
And speaking of white casting, I even saw somewhere online that like the studio was even considering turning Blade white, and they were like, no, Blade has always
no.
So
no way they didn't do that.
Yes, that'd be so bad. That would be a failure. Even back then, fans would have turned against it. I like the actress that plays Karen. I believe her name is
Nabushe Wright.
Nabushe Wright. Yes, exactly. I like her. She's got a great look. There are moments that I was kind of like, I actually feel like she could be funny every now and then. Like when they're beating each other up in her apartment and he's breaking everything. She's just kind of like, is this necessary? I'm like, I feel like you'd be like, no, not that. Like I kind of wanted just a little bit more life in her, but she does have some really cool stuff to do for sure. Yeah. And she is good. Yeah. She's definitely, she matches his stoicness.
Exactly. Yeah. Because she's kind of stoic too, but not too, and then Whistler has his little, but everyone's very stoic in this movie.
Oh yeah. Everyone's very serious.
They have
only really the bad guys have comedy. Like I think his name is Donald Logue, who plays Donald Logue, who plays Quinn.
Quinn, he's so funny, and his role was originally much smaller in the movie, but he was so funny on set that most of his lines are ad-libbed. Like they put more scenes with him, and a lot of his lines are ad-libbed, which kind of I was like, I can see that, but in a good way, like because it's very like off the cuff, like funny. Yeah.
He's great. He's great and so stupid, but so cocky, and his hands.
And vicious too, like funny but vicious, like not,
Yeah, he's good like, casting.
Yeah.
But Chris Christopherson, so we know he was in, A Star is Born with Barbra Streisand much earlier. How funny. He had 2 movies come out in the same day. He had Blade and a movie called Dance With Me. So he was having a little moment that day, 2 big movies. Well, I don't know big. Dance With Me wasn't really a success, but
I saw that,
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I think it's him and Vanessa Williams and some other people. It had a brief thing, but same opening day. But he previously, in the years leading up to this, he was in Fire Down Below with Steven Seagal. And did you see that one too? Why am I not surprised? Steven Seagal. Oh my god.
I like this like 90s and 80s action movies.
Oh yeah, you're my action girl.
Steven Seagal movies, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like, please.
Absolutely. So he was in that, and he was in Lone Star, which was with a younger Matthew McConaughey, like a Southern cop action thing. So, yeah, so that's him. So now that's enough of the actors. Now, Katie, we've already talked about some great moments, but tell me more. What do you love about Blade? What are some key memories that you're like, oh my God, that's Blade, you know?
Well, first of all, one of my favorite opening scenes ever. Like, it is so cool. The movie's 2 hours long, and it doesn't feel that because it's so action-packed and fast-paced. It really feels fast, even though it's 2 hours, at least for me. But that opening scene is like amazing. Like, I remember seeing it first time and being like, this is fucking mayhem. This is amazing. Like,
mayhem.
The techno pounding music, they're all dancing, and then the blood, like, and then the entrance of Blade, like, it just is like such a great opening scene and introduction to the main character.
Oh my God, yes.
That scene, like, every time I watch, I'm like, man, this scene is so good. Even
it's
like 25
so
years
good.
later, like, I still love this scene.
I agree.
And, yeah.
It's so good. And Tracy Lords as that, in her red wig with the blunt bangs, and she's bringing this,
he
guy
looks like the poor man's Owen Wilson. I don't know the actor's name, but he kind of reminds me.
It's so funny. I don't know his name, but you're so right. He's that kind of look. Blonde, a little dopey. He was on that show, Bates Motel.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but he's still working. He's probably on something on like CBS, some like firefighter show or one of those things. But she's bringing him along, and they're walking through this like meat plant, whatever, and he's like, where are we? And she just looks so hot. She's so like matrixy, like otherworldly, and then the guy opens that door, and we hear that song, which, Katie, I have to admit, that song was on my iPod.
So I have the soundtrack with me.
Yes.
So I found there's 2 CDs, you know it. So
oh my God.
I was like, I think I still have those CDs. So there's one, this is like, I think this one has the techno music, and there's the other one that has like the orchestral music. There's 2 CDs, and I have both, of course.
Oh my God, of course you do.
I'm not like a huge techno person, but I do love the techno music in this movie.
Yeah. The music is good. It's not
Mark Isham did the music. He originally wasn't going to, it was somebody else. I can't remember the name, but he took it over. I love the music for this movie. I think it's perfect.
I love it too.
It's like, it has the techno beat, and then it has like some orchestral, like it matches the tone. I love the music in this movie.
Yes, completely agree. It's got its fast,
dark,
thumping beats, but then it's dark, and then it's moody, and then sad every once in a while, with mom stuff, which, wow, that's a whole interesting thing as well. We'll talk about. Yeah. But, I totally agree. And I was reading that The Prodigy, that band, Smack My Bitch Up, they were the first choice to do the techno music, I guess, throughout the film, but they couldn't for because of other commitments. But I think it works just as it is. Yeah, I loved. I mean that and the dancing, and like, I mean, oh my God.
I want to be there, even though I would get killed because I'm human. But
oh my God, and it's scary. It's actually scary. Like, even 25 years later, I get stressed, because then when he is this guy that has no idea what he's getting into, and I also love the other female vampire who's like Deacon's girlfriend. I think her name is Mercury.
I know her name. Yes. Yeah, her name's never mentioned. I only know that because obsessed. So I know her name. Yeah, she was actually a model. She had like no acting experience really. She was a model in Eastern Europe. I can't remember what
you can totally tell. Yeah,
and she's not bad. Like, for her first acting experience, of course she's beautiful. But
she's got such a good look. She's always in white, and then her hair is platinum blonde. But I love how like the girls are dancing together, and then they like even push the guy away.
And that's when he's realizing like something's not quite right.
Yeah, they're like, we actually don't care about you. Yeah. And that's when we meet Quinn, who's like getting a blowjob.
I know.
I'm like, oh.
I know.
And so everyone's partying, everyone's getting closer and closer to this guy, and the blood is dripping on him.
And you see a quick view of Deacon too, and he gets pushed.
Yes, I didn't
even notice it the first couple times I saw it. I was like, wow, so quick. It's like
wow. I would have thought you'd be like, who's that guy at the club? No. That boy is mine. But and then the blood dripping, and I love, Katie. I mean, the cinematography in this movie is top notch. I mean,
so good.
Many shots are standard, but there are some great moving shots, and I love that kind of the choreography of, as he's looking up, we see their hands rising, which freaks me out. I have to be honest. 25 years later, I'm still so spooked by that. And then the blood spurts out, which is so gross. And, I have to say, and I remember I was relieved as a kid. I'm glad the guy doesn't die, because he in another movie, he would absolutely die. But instead, you're right. Then we meet Blade, this amazing reveal, and
Yeah.
they're all
And they're
backing
like,
up.
shit. Like, it's
Yes.
the Daywalker. And you're like, oh, what?
And then he kills Tracy Lords. He's killing a whole bunch of them. That's when we reveal, he's got these cool, like, silver stake bullets.
The weapons are really cool. Yeah. But yeah, that
Iconic.
opening scene is just like, it packs a punch. Like
It packs a punch.
And it really opens up the whole movie. You're like, oh, I know what I'm in for. And I'm very excited for this ride.
It absolutely modernizes the vampire films of this time. It absolutely, we are in LA, we are raving, we are killing vampires with like bullets instead of just the typical stakes. Like,
he has stakes, but they're like the silver, which I do love. Another thing I really like about the movie, and I was saying this to my friends on Friday, it's much more, it has a little bit of supernatural part for sure with like the blood god and everything, but it's a lot of science, which I like. It explains, like when Karen's explaining like what, or they're all explaining like why they're allergic to garlic and why they can't go in the sun. It's more of a scientific explanation. So I kind of like that. Where past movies, it's all supernatural. It's just is what it is. Like, and this is like, no, they're actually a biological creature that, can't sustain their own hemoglobin. So they need blood and they have severe allergy. Like it explained in a way that I'm like, this could be like real. Like, I mean, we know it's not, or is it? But this could be like a real thing. Like, oh, it's just like a virus or like
absolutely
it changes. I'm like, so I like, that's something I never seen before personally, again, in vampire movies. When I first saw it, I was like, this is a different take. I like it.
Much like 28 Days Later, which came out a few years ago. That just celebrated its 20th anniversary. How the zombies are the infected. It makes it much more modern and real, where it's a virus. Exactly.
Yeah,
where like
there's like some supernatural force, but then it does have that. It has the blood god, and it does have some supernatural stuff towards the end, which I love. Which it's fun and it's exciting. The second one is much more scientific. Like it's not as much supernatural, which I still love. And then the third one kind of has more supernatural, but it kind of walks that line, which I like. But that's the other thing I really like about the movie.
Do you remember who is like the main villain in the second one? Do you remember?
So they have a new strain of vampire and that feed off vampires, and they had their mouths open up. So Guillermo del Toro did that, and the effects are awesome. Like,
that was scary. Very cool effects for sure.
Very cool.
Because then I know the third one brings Dracula in, which was a good idea. Yeah. But, just cheesy.
Yeah. Like I said, just the execution was not great.
And again, kind of copying Buffy's footsteps, because Buffy, a few years prior, like season 5, I remember the premiere was she finally meets Dracula. So it's funny how the two of them are kind of, walking the same line there. Yeah. But I remember I saw the second one. I've seen all 3 in theaters. The second one I saw in theaters with Lindsay Ferg.
Okay. I saw it in Florida.
Because by then I think we were in high school. And then the fourth one, I guess I saw with my dad again. You saw not the fourth one, the third one.
The third one, my friend and I, who I made her obsessed with Blade as much as me, we took a day early off school to go see Blade 3. We were so excited.
Nice.
So again,
what did she think of that one?
We were both like, and so my writing teacher, so my nickname in high school was Blade. Junior year in my literary magazine class was one of my favorite teachers ever, Mr. Zucker. I don't think he listens, but I love you. You're awesome.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
But he nicknamed me Blade because he knew my obsession. So I was called Blade in that classroom. But I came in the next day. He's like, how was the movie? And I'm like, it was not good. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was so distraught. I was like, I mean, I loved like some of it. Like Ryan Reynolds was amazing, but like, the execution and
Oh, that is so sweet that he wanted to know what. I love that. Wow. So you were Blade in high school. Oh my God.
Just in that class, nowhere else. Like only in that class, because everyone called me. At
least we had Ryan Reynolds' abs in the third one.
He was
that was
my
the saving grace.
screensaver on my flip phone. I took a picture of him shirtless when he's like chained up. Or whatever, and he's all like, he's like everything,
Absolutely. Yeah, we had, because then he had that in 2004, and then 2005 he was showing off everything in Amityville Horror.
Which I saw in the theaters too, and all my friends were like, ooh.
Oh yeah, there was a gasp. There was an audible.
There are worse things out tonight than vampires.
Like what?
Like me.
There's a war going on out there. Blade, myself, we kill as many of them as we can find.
Originally, they wanted Pearl, when they walked in, I think it's he, I don't know. They. they are surrounded by dead children and babies, because that's why he's so obese. He like eats, like, because David S. Goyer like was talking about like that character, because not a lot is explained. It's just this just gelatinously giant, huge, fat, being.
Yeah.
But apparently he like feasts off the hearts of children and like is like unsatiable bloodlust, and that's how he became that. And then it was like, I think I have here, it was 700 pounds of latex.
Wow.
And I know, which I was like, oh my god, 700 pounds. And it took like 4 people to move it, because there was like one at the head, one at each arm, and then at the feet. Yeah, like 4 people to maneuver. Yeah, and it had to be carried in with a forklift, like the latex suit. 700 pounds. I read that and I was like, wow, that's almost a ton. Like,
that's crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. So it couldn't have, obviously, it wasn't all on the actor. They probably like had it sitting on something, and then the actor must have been.
That's what I think. The guys were lifting the arms like so the actor was crushed to death by 700.
Oh my god! Right? I mean, Jesus.
Yeah,
wow.
like when I read about that, because I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that's how they did that. Like that's.
And it's so disturbing the way the actor, is shaking in pain when Karen's just, and I love how she says. Well, because she basically kills him, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah. She she just keeps burning that light, and then Blade even looks at her, and I love how she goes, "He moved." There are some great little short lines like that
where you're like, "Ha ha," and they're like, "Okay."
Yep.
Just the tiniest bit of comedic,
Oh yeah, but great, practical effects with all the latex, and then also I have to say, 25 years later, I love the CGI. I think it works really well still. I think
it's not overdone. It's not overdone, and I think they were smart. And we'll talk about the alternate ending. Did you watch the alternate ending?
So let's talk about it. Yeah, I watched the one ending, which would have been very interesting, although it's very vague from what I could see, where the director apparently plays Morbius. On the roof. How funny we finally got that Morbius movie with Jared Leto, which apparently was awful. Did you see it?
It's not great.
It's okay.
It's fun, but it's not great. Like,
I remember it was such a big thing, and then it really kind of.
I love Jared Leto, and I like his casting, so I'm like, but maybe but with Blade coming into the universe now, like. Morbius, Blade.
They might bring maybe Jared Leto back and maybe kind of retool it or something.
But that was the original. But that ending with the blood, like they didn't have the effects right for that. So I'm glad they went less effect and more martial arts fighting. So it kept the tone of the movie.
Right.
Like Deacon and Blade's final fight.
Yeah, because apparently the real ending where so it's the showdown between Deacon and Blade, but Deacon is this the blood god, and now just just blood in the air.
And the test audiences were like, we don't like that. We love their dynamic, and you just took that away.
Yes.
And they loved Stephen Dorff as Deacon, like they like that character. And then now it's just this amorphous blood blob, like what? So they redid it, and I think it's great because it's like back to that sword fight, martial arts, like bare knuckle fight, the whole movie. So it matches the tone, but it still has some, effects when he like goes the hand back and stuff. But the effects they were pretty decent,
Yeah, I think it's great when Blade swipes, Deacon and cuts him in half, and then he the blood just sort of is like goo, just bringing him back.
And like, what the fuck? He's like, shit, this is not going to be easy.
I love how he mouths it. I'm like, he could have just said it, but it's actually kind of funny.
I kind of like it better though. It's quiet because he's just so in shock. He's like, oh fuck, I'm in for a fight.
I have my work cut out for me. But I also love before that in the big climax, all the like pure blood vampires that look like they're like stockbrokers. They're all in like suits.
I do love they did that because I feel like Deacon comes in. That's why he's like this new, like, new era vampire. And there's all these old, they look like
stuffy
old stockbrokers, like stuffy, just like they're not doing anything anymore than making like political decisions.
Right. Very like corporate looking. And now in comes this crew that's so grungy and like, total opposite.
They're like, we're going to take over the world. And they're like, no, we just want to be in politics. And I'm like, no.
Right. I know, which that's also a really interesting avenue for this story to explore as well. Yeah. Kind of like X2, X-Men, when like, they're like trying to get the bad mutants like into the White House and all that, very interesting. But no, I love when they're all standing around in the circle and then like because of the ritual with Blade's blood, which is I do have to say it's a bit gross. I'm not so good with blood when it's like coming out of
it's
wrists
like
and
gushing
stuff.
out of his wrists. Yeah.
You'll be proud, Katie. I finally got my blood drawn on Friday for my doctor, my physical. First time in years. I know I'm very bad. I know I should do it every year. I bought numbing cream online on Amazon that had good reviews. I'm like putting it all over, and it actually worked. And it was over before I knew it. Thank you, Jesus. I am not good with needles. But
I know you're not.
yeah, and I was like, they were very nice, and they
Saul too. That's all.
Oh God, exactly.
I
know.
thought of you, and I don't think we saw that together. I think I was
I saw it with my dad, and I was like crying. Anyway, no, I love how once that blood ritual's happening and all the old vampires, then I thought the effects of their skulls, their skeletons
their
coming out of their mouth, with
like,
wings. I thought that was really cool, and I think it holds up pretty dang well.
It's very fast, and it's just it's not it's
chaotic.
I agree. And I feel like when Dragon Eddie is burned in the sun, I feel like that's a lot of practical effects too. I think there's CGI as well, but I was really looking, I'm like, this is like practical effects mixed with a little CGI, but it works. So that's why that scene, if they did all CGI at the time, probably would have been like corny.
Yeah.
Would not look right. But I think, I didn't research how they did that, but it looked to me like practical effects with a little bit of CGI mixed in.
You bring up another memorable scene. How can we forget? Yeah, Dragon Eddie, Udo Kier.
Yeah.
Iconic horror movie actor from the past and all that. Yes, he's just such an interesting actor. But that scene where that's when Deacon fully is now like coming into power, and he and his girlfriend and the vampires, they bring him outside in that sun, and it's rising at the beach. Ooh, brutal.
Yeah, that's a really good scene too.
Very memorable. You could feel the pain,
because he's like starting to steam a little. It's like a slow build. You're like, oh geez.
Oh, and the panic, and they rip open his shirt to just make it hurt even more. Yeah. Really good scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some brutal moments, even in the beginning when Karen, and I wanted to say, I totally agree with you, Katie, and I absolutely appreciate, it's a full 2 hours. For me, it lags every once in a while. I think it's just so serious that I'm like, all right, let's like get to the next scene every once in a blue moon. But I love that this movie starts and it does not really stop. Like we get right to it, to the point where a movie today might actually like set up more character building, but no, we do the rave. We're now meeting Karen's ex-boyfriend. That guy is
Curtis, off, and then she gets bit, and it's like that's a great scene. And did you hear what happened?
Quinn all burnt.
Did you hear what happened to Logan that scene? So because he had an injury, a jaw injury from a while ago, I think, and he fell and dislodged his jaw. They had to take him to the hospital, but they were like, we had to take him to the hospital, but he's in full 3rd-degree burn makeup and like almost naked. So like that, they were like, that was an interesting hospital visit. Like, it's not what you think. It's just a dislodged jaw.
Oh my God.
He's not a burn victim.
That is funny. I did not know that at all.
Yeah, he had to go to the Oh, and I'm like, oof, I can't imagine.
Ooh, can you imagine an injury that bad?
I think he was like, if he opens his jaw too wide or something, it dislodges.
Wow.
Like the previous. So it was like that, and then he fell. Like it just was a perfect storm of
shit.
Yeah, so that scene is brutal in many ways.
Oh my God, it's brutal in many ways. Because the way he lunges at her, that shot, that was scary. It was thrilling.
I remember that first seeing that. I was like, oh shit. Like, is it like he like jumps up because they're having this like boring like ex's conversation or whatever. You're like, ah!
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she's on the floor and he's biting her, and then that's when she meets Blade, which made me also think of you because it's almost a little Sarah Connor sees Terminator in Terminator 2 coming, like down the I kind of got a little sense of that.
Slow motion entrance and
like her like kind of not sure who he is. Should she be scared of him? Should she need him? That's a great introduction to Karen, and a great introduction to her ex, because then I love Katie at the end. I love, and I actually wish we were down there more, how Deacon and Quinn just push Karen down this creepy hole in their whole lair,
and you're like, what is happening?
And it's again so visceral and violent. She's like, she lands on the ground, and now we're in this almost Jeepers Creepers-esque, gross,
bones everywhere. Like what? Yeah.
And quickly she re-meets her ex, her former coworker, who we thought was dead. No, he is now like this extra scary, zombie vampire, and his voice.
Oh, it's so good. And then he's just left down there. I'm like, oh my God, is he just like down there forever just to die? Like, oh, it's horrible.
Yes, it's a great little sequence. And she's she's super tough. She knows how to take these guys
Yeah.
out. But I kind of wish we were down there more, and I kind of wish we were scared for her. Like maybe he really was gonna kill her, like just to add more tension, because we were cutting from there back to Blade's getting bled out with his mom and all that, and great sequence down there below for sure.
Yeah, that was really good.
Dusty, creepy basement. Yeah.
I know that I really like the set pieces too in the movie. Like I was like writing down like notes. I was like, well, I like the temple's really cool. The club, of course, is cool. Even like the city shots are like very desolate, and it works for the movie. Like lonesome alleyways of like papers blowing through, and then like the city. It just makes the city look so drab and like And then I love the Chinatown sequence with Blade and Deacon when they meet. That's
with the little girl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the little girl. That's a great scene. I like that setting in like Chinatown. It's like different part of the city, daytime, because the movie's so dark. So I'm like, oh, it's a daytime scene.
Yes, you're right. It's the mixture of daytime and then how it's a totally different vibe from other stuff we've seen in the movie. It adds to the memorable quality for sure. And just their showdown, how like this is kind of, that moment is kind of when the two of them for real talk, like kind of like for the first time face to face, right? Mm-hmm, so it's very tense. Love that. And I just always remember how he throws the girl into the street, and she's just like, and it kind of obviously looks like it's a wig. It's just so much hair on this little child.
Girl.
But I just love how
she's just like, what the fuck? Like,
I just remember so well that shot of her like sitting up in the street as like a truck's coming.
And the bus is coming. Yeah, like that scene is really great. Like I like how they filmed it.
And I also love the subway scene when they're underground. That's some really great action.
Another cool set piece, which I think is all CGI. The train, but you don't really notice. But like,
it works well.
That whole scene is
Quinn, and then how like Mercury in the group is coming closer and closer, but then Blade is able to just grab the bar at the end of the train, and so cool.
Which is like you're like so ridiculous. You all would have died, but whatever. I'm going with it. It's
his arm would have been snapped
Everything
off.
would have been snapped in pieces. She would have snapped in half. But I'm like, I'm just going with it.
I'm going with it. It's so cool. It's very badass.
Part human, part immortal.
I know all about you. Daywalker.
He alone has the power of both worlds.
All our strengths, none of our weaknesses.
Fun fact, the actor that plays the cop, who's like working with the vampires, I am 99% certain, so random, that guy is in the opening of Scream with Drew Barrymore. That is her boyfriend.
It might be because it would have been before, so he would have been really young.
I'm pretty sure that
in the movie.
Yes,
so
I'm pretty sure that's the same actor, Steve, in the chair. I'm pretty sure Kevin Patrick Walls is his name, because he hadn't really done many other films from what I can remember. But I love the scene when he goes to Deacon, to update them, and at the whole pool thing.
That party is so amazing. I'm like when the shutters are going up, like the sound. It's like they're entering out of their cave, and like they have the rubber duckies and the
rubber ducky, on
the top of the building. It's so fucking cool. I'm like, I want to be at this party, but not.
I know. It's so cool. Another great
very cool set piece. Again, like I really like it's so funny. Like the vampires, they have the sleek technology. It's like it's bright white in some of the rooms, like a library or
or like Deacon's room.
It's very modern, and then like everything else in the city, like Blade's vantage point is like dirty and grimy and dark, and it's just such a interesting.
Yeah, you're right. It's you would think it would be the opposite, right? But no,
But I wrote that. I was like, interesting. The vampires, it's a lot of bright whites and lights and bright,
very sterile, very like
sterile.
And that's super
like
spooky,
and grimy, and
like when something is so clean and white and bright, it's like it's like a lab or something,
A lab, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. Because Deacon's room, we see him there. You must have been like salivating. He's sitting there shirtless with the transcoding whatever of the stuff.
And then the bed opens up.
His bed like has it's like a capsule. Yes. Yeah. And it's funny because the first time we see the bed kind of move, I don't know if that's Sanaa Lathan. I thought that was another actress, but maybe it is her and we just don't notice it's her.
I think it's her.
I guess it's her, and I just never ever noticed it was her. But then the second time, let's talk about the mom.
Oh shit.
Wow, that's an interesting reveal. Because, of course, the movie opens with the rave, but the real opening is a flashback to his mom, Vanessa, who was just bit by, we find out, Deacon, which is a great reveal later. He is the vampire that turned his mom. So she's covered in blood. She's in the ER. She's like 9 months pregnant, and she gives birth to Blade. But she dies, or so he thought. So that reveal when Blade is in the room
from the comic books too. Because comic books, she really does die. Yeah.
Oh, does she die?
Which I thought was it's a good change in the movie. It's good dramatic effect. Like when I found, I was like, oh yeah, she died originally in the comic books, but never became a vampire. But I did like that change they made for the film because it was just good dramatic effect. I love Snowy, and she's beautiful.
She's stunning, absolutely stunning. What a great actress, and just what a reveal, and how they know each other, and she's so young and hot and so evil. She's the one that puts him in that like tomb thing to bleed him out. And then how she's like rubbing her face on his.
It's so gross. I'm like,
it's so wrong.
Creepy. But it kind of shows like, it is not his mom. This is like someone totally 30 years later, different,
Yes. And then how he kills her, how he says,
but then
I need to release you.
Your mother. You wouldn't hurt your mother. I'm like, oh, you manipulative. Oh, you're so evil.
Yes. She's a great villain too. Yeah. She comes in late, but whoa, she's twisted. Yeah. I love that reveal. Absolutely. It's so twisted. And he's not falling for it, but like, he's trapped,
that twinge of like hesitation.
Yes. Because he is still half vampire, so he's sort of drawn to her. He's drawn to them. That's why he needs his serum to kind of stop those urges. Bringing us to then that crazy scene when he's biting Karen, and like he's really animalistic. Like he's got that in him.
And when the world of the living is at an end, he alone can turn back the tide.
You're nothing to me but another dead vampire.
The whole serum stuff is so interesting. I love how at the end, I love just the choreography of it all, the shots of like the serum's up in the crack in the wall, and then he throws his cool badass sword up there, and Deacon's thinking like, oh, well, you missed, but actually, because of that cool effect, how the sword has its little mini blades, which cut off that one guy's hand. So cool. That sets the serum free. Blade catches it behind him like a badass.
The whole thing.
And then it's just throwing the serum at Deacon, and oh my god! I mean, that's so cool. The effects are just so cool. Yeah. So any changes from the comic book? I feel like overall, this was a movie.
The ones that I know about, because Whistler also is not in the original comic books.
Oh, is he?
He is. So he was written. So in the which I of course recorded the Spider-Man episode because I love Blade. So Blade made an appearance in the '90s Spider-Man animated series. I feel like we all watched. And Whistler is in that. They wrote Whistler for that show for Blade's cameo appearance because Morbius is in it, and then Marvel liked Whistler so much, the CEO, that they put him they wrote him into the movie. Which again I was like, that's cool. I didn't know that either. I was like, oh, I thought Whistler was in the comic books because then I've never read the standalone series. I've only read Tomb of Dracula where he's introduced
right. Oh, that's so interesting. It really is so cool. I mean, I get overwhelmed by Marvel and DC and all these movies you gotta watch, and TV shows now. Of course, it's too much, but it really is so cool and creative to have your library of characters like that and decide like who you can use, how you can use them. It really is so cool. Like, that's the stuff I was doing as a kid. Like before that ABC show, Once Upon a Time, I think it was called, where it was all different Disney characters. I was writing my own little like stories of like, okay, well, in this movie, the Little Mermaid is gonna hang out with Sleeping Beauty and Aladdin joins that, like I was already kind of mixing, so I've always loved how, just hearing about people picking this character and that one from over there,
mixing it into the storyline, and
it could have been really interesting to introduce Morbius and to have Morbius in the Blade sequels, but we didn't get Morbius until years later.
Sure, if they were going to make, because when they made the movie, they weren't sure of the success, so they. Yeah. The original ending. Did you read the original? It's not been filmed, but the original ending kind of was similar to Army of Darkness with the apocalypse, like ashes coming out, and it's like the end of the demons have won. So Blade, the original ending was that Deacon wins. He doesn't kill Blade, but he like that red wave comes and he turns, like anyone it touches, it turns into a vampire. And I guess the city, I'm not sure. So the setting up for the sequel being Blade and Karen like fighting this apocalypse, like they're in it, like it's, but they weren't. I was like, oh, it would have been kind of cool because then we could have had more Deacon and could have had more of the blood god mythology and like what's going on with that.
Right.
And the idea, that, but they weren't sure they're going to have a sequel. So they filmed it. They which I understand because the sequel didn't come out for
like 4 years, I think.
Yeah, 4 years, 2002. Yeah.
It was definitely a little bit because then the third one came out only 2 years after the second one. So
yeah, it was a different director and so I get why they did it, but I'm like, oh, that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like, again, like Army of Darkness, it was Ash originally, like the demons win and he's got the apocalypse. So it reminded me when I was reading that, I'm like, oh, it's similar to
how funny
I originally wanted to do for Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I had read that apparently David S. Goyer as a writer likes to write multiple endings. Which is cool, I guess, just to see how the movie feels and if they want to shoot certain things. I think that's really cool.
Could have gone in so many different ending directions.
Yeah.
And they filmed a whole alternate ending with Morbius,
right?
Because that was another idea of having Morbius be in the sequel, like the bad guy in the sequel.
Yes, but I guess the studio didn't like that idea for some reason, which is interesting.
Same thing. They're like, we'll just film it as is.
You would have thought that they would have liked that because, fans of the comic books knew Morbius. But yeah, interesting. Also, Marvel at this time was just a different company. It's not how it was 10 years later, of course, when Iron Man started. So I'm sure...
Spider-Man came out in 2002.
Oh, right. 2002, yes.
And I feel like people kind of forgot about Blade, but then those of us were like, no, this was actually the start of it. And
good point.
Marvel sort of, they backed Blade, but they weren't like when Spider-Man came out, they're like, Spider-Man, everybody, like they were so excited. Where Blade didn't get a lot of and they
also it's because they
and Wesley Snipes have both said like, they were not. I think like again, I just remember reading something where they were like, oh, now you guys are backing the movie. Like when we made our movie, you guys are like, oh,
how funny.
Yeah. Something like that. I read it.
I could see it. Yeah. I could totally believe it where it's like, we're not sure. It's like this Wesley Snipes. Well, think about it. Race, definitely.
A black
unfortunately, that was a thing at that time, especially knowing that like the studio was considering turning him white, right? So vampires, R-rated action superhero. It's like, they didn't really. It's like try it.
Movies are hard. Like our
totally.
Movies, they're a harder sell because they're not going to reach as many audiences. But
also, what complicates things is Marvel worked with New Line on this, but then Marvel has worked with Sony on Spider-Man. I was about to say Peter Parker on Spider-Man. So I think this was at a time when like Marvel wasn't so standalone on their own, and of course with Disney, they had to work with other companies. So then that's a rights thing, and
exactly that's messy with having Spider-Man join the Avengers.
Right,
they had to like fight for that, and same with certain X-Men because X-Men was. Fox and Marvel. Like it was very messy. So, but yeah, Blade. Wesley Snipes originally wanted to play Black Panther. I don't know if you knew that.
I had heard that, and was trying to get that off the ground. Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And then they offered him Blade, and he didn't really know anything. He's like, I don't know about this. And kind of read into it. He's like, actually, this is pretty cool. I can do this. I can make something of this. Like it's
a good backup because I could absolutely back then I could have absolutely seen Wesley Snipes as Black Panther.
Absolutely, in '90s Wesley Snipes 100%. But I love Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P. But I think I'm glad things worked out that way that he's Blade. And but now I'm excited. Well, if it ever gets made, the new Blade movie.
I know. Well, let's talk about that now. So obviously this movie made tons of money. It led to these sequels that we talked about. It led to a TV show, short-lived TV show. I never saw it. Did you watch it? I'm not surprised.
Of course I watched it.
It was on Spike, I remember.
Yes, Spike TV. I liked it. I think it was Sticky Fingers played Blade, and like it wasn't my favorite because I love Wesley Snipes' Blade, but I liked the storyline. I liked, I thought it was good. It kept me interested, but it of course was canceled after like 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, I remember it was on around the time we were in college, I think, right?
Yes, I want to say 06 maybe 07.
Right around there.
Yeah. And then this new one, now this new, I was like, I don't know, because I love my original.
I know.
And then they casted Mahershala Ali because my thing was, who's going to play Blake? Like,
I know, because Wesley Snipes has said he would be happy to return.
Yeah. So. And even Stephen Dorff was interested in coming back as Deacon. Which we'll talk about
that would be fun.
But when they announced him, I was like, yes. that's actually if you watch the newest season of True Detective, like
oh, I haven't seen that, but I forgot he was the lead.
Stephen Dorff
Oh,
in
is
that.
he?
He's phenomenal.
Oh, how
They're
funny.
so good. It's a good season, better than the second one.
Oh,
it's a
okay.
good
Yeah.
season. They're amazing together.
Was that season 3 with Mahershala? I think that was season 3, right? I know season 4 is with Jodie Foster soon. So yeah, I gotta watch.
Season 4
I tried to watch the very first season and I just couldn't get into it. I'm like the only person.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
Maybe I'll try again. But yeah, I did hear the second one is not so good.
The second's hard to get through. Cast is great. Third was much better, but Mahershala Ali is the star and Stephen Dorff is co-star, and they're both phenomenal.
Nice.
Very good. Yeah. And so after that, I was like, okay, that's a good choice for Blade. I'll allow it.
He's an excellent actor. He looks good. I'm sure he's
His
pretty
voice is
thin,
right.
so he could probably get a little beefier if needed.
Yeah.
If you even need to. You kind of don't need to, because I think Blade could also work on the slimmer side, just because Wesley Snipes was sort of a thick guy. But I'm glad we're talking about it, because I looked it up, because I know it's been in the works for a while. They first announced it, I almost feel like 3 or 4 years ago. Like they've been talking about this for a long time. Mahershala has been attached to it for I feel like at least 2 years. But I did look it up on IMDb Pro. It says as of, maybe it's done by now. I think it said as of late May, it was currently filming. So.
Yay! Because I know with the writers, they were kind of waiting on that. So,
Right. I guess maybe they already filmed it, or at least filmed part of it. I don't know. You never know. You can only take a grain of salt with these things. But it's him and Mia Goth, who's great, and now a new horror scream queen. So that could be interesting. And Delroy Lindo is in the cast. So the release date currently, as of right now, it keeps getting postponed, is Valentine's Day 2025.
Okay, Valentine's Day, romantic.
Yeah, I know. So maybe if Stephen Dorff's in it, then you know what you're doing Valentine's Day.
Well, no, I've thought about it would be fun, but I think they're going with a whole new story. Let's not retread old storylines. They're so well done. But it's funny, if he was to play him again, I'm like, well, Deacon Frost was an older character, so now you're more of the comic book. You're just
and he could look good with some gray, some salt and pepper or something.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, but no, I think go in a different direction. They're kind of because he's starting to go into the Avengers and the phase 4 and 5 of the Marvel. I guess
so. Yeah. That'll be interesting.
I'll be interested. Yeah, I don't know. Do you know if it's rated R?
I mean, it's very hard. It's very hard to do these successful films from the 90s and 2000s if they're rated R and the new one isn't. So I would hope they're going to give it an R. I mean, I still have not. I know we were talking about it during our Evil Dead discussion. I still need to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse. I know that was a little creepy, a little, dark. So it could be really cool if they really do embrace the darkness with a new Blade.
To me, Blade, Deadpool, Punisher, they need to be rated R movies. Because they're grittier. They're Spawn, same thing. Love Spawn. Like that, which came out right before Blade.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll be interested. I'll be first in line to see it. It should be good. I hope it's good. I like things. I like the casting.
It's definitely a cool world and character that you could keep fleshing out, get it, and taking him different places, and it could be really badass to then see Blade with the next phase of Avengers. That could be really interesting.
He's been in the Avengers and some
team up with Spider-Man, that could be really fun.
Yeah, he's teamed up with some but he's tricky because he's such a loner. He's like Daredevil, Punisher, even Spider-Man. They're they'll play with teams, but they're more lone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would that would be cool to see. So to be continued.
Katie, it could also be really cool, and how interesting for Wesley Snipes. I could also see them doing a Blade and Black Panther thing, but I feel like if they do that, Wesley Snipes has to have a role in the movie. I mean, because knowing that he wanted Black Panther, you got to somehow give him a cameo at least, right? But that could be pretty badass. That would be
so. Because you're thinking about the multiverse, it could be Wesley Snipes as Black Panther or Wesley Snipes as another Blade.
Oh my God.
The new Spider-Man movie.
Genius. Yes. The new Spider-Man. You're right.
So they had all three. So it'd be with Wesley Snipes Blade and then this Blade. I don't know.
Yes. That's very trendy right now because Michael Keaton was just Batman in that Flash movie or whatever.
I love Michael Keaton. I want to see that.
I know. That's the only selling point for me. I don't really follow the DC ones, and I know Ezra Miller's definitely problematic. But how fun to see Michael Keaton come back. So that they could totally do that where Wesley Snipes could have a cameo as Blade with Black Panther and the new Blade. I'm into it.
I know. I feel like we just wrote a Marvel movie.
I feel like we need a paycheck.
We should get royalties.
Let's get our lawyer on the phone with
I need to first find a lawyer, and then I'm going to get him or her on the phone.
If you're a lawyer and you're listening to this podcast, email me. Well, that basically does it for our discussion, Katie. I know we could keep talking, but any other thoughts before I let you go? Any other, memories, scenes that you wanted to shout out about this original Blade before we end it?
I mean, I think we covered like everything, so rewatching it was great and still love it. I used to write a whole bunch of fan fiction about it as well.
Did you really?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so I was in it to win it for Blade.
I love that so much. I love that so. I did not know that. I don't think I knew you were that. I don't think so. Do you still have it somewhere?
No, I got rid of them, but because I had so many. But I'm trying to think.
That's amazing.
I started writing in
maybe you did send it to me.
Read them. I don't know. Or no, maybe it's high school I started doing it. Yeah.
Because I do feel like we would write long.
We
okay. I'm kind of remembering a little bit, like a couple pages, maybe in middle school, but wow. It's a memory that I got to really pull out. But wow, Katie, I love that. I mean, I was writing a ton too, and I mean, our minds, we loved this. I think
you read the Virtuosity fan story.
I remember that one.
Because we were gonna like make a movie poster.
Oh yeah, we were. Yeah, I remember I drew a movie poster for Virtuosity too.
I have it somewhere. I think.
I don't remember what like the subtitle was called, but I remember it was Virtuosity 2 : something. And I drew it. Oh yeah, I would always draw like my own like posters of things.
Posters,
oh my god.
Yeah.
So nerdy, but so cool.
I've done a bunch of Blade. So maybe I did that in high school more, and because my friends in high school read them, but maybe Buffy. I did a Buffy Blade fan fiction. You might have read that. You might have read that one.
And if that doesn't besides your if you do you have it or no, you threw that away too?
I threw it out.
I would absolutely in a heartbeat read that again.
No, it's not good. I could rewrite it better nowadays. Like 12-year-old not a great writer.
I know you're busy, but whenever you're free, I mean, if you want to write some Buffy and Blade, I would be so down.
I had written and you do not have to include this in the podcast, but I had written like a whole thing with like Deacon and like Slayer bloodlines and why he was able to be Lamagra. And I had a whole theory behind.
I love that.
There was like a bigger power at play. Like he just happened to bite this woman and then he's using it in a ritual. Like no, somebody else was like puppeteering. So I had like a whole, I could rewrite that.
You had a whole other big bad for a Buffy team.
Exactly.
Oh, wow, Katie, that's so creative. I love that. I love hearing that stuff. I love it. Yeah, I would die to see even just like, I don't know, a little like quick video of like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Wesley Snipes. Like
I know. And I had Buffy in that one too. Like Buffy came in about the Slayer bloodlines and like so she was in it. Yeah. So
that's so Buffy cool. Blade. We can dream one day.
Maybe that never happened.
I know. And then you could do a retro crossover of like Deacon and Angel since they basically look like brothers, kind of. That could be fun.
He makes the weapons. I use them.
Blade.
And then definitely real quick, The Matrix. We talk about The Matrix.
Oh my God, that's right. We have to end it with The Matrix. Yes. Lots of visual similarities, right?
Sunglasses, the trench coat, the look, the tone, the coloring, even the music, because I also had the Matrix soundtracks, which are amazing. The Matrix soundtracks,
absolutely,
very, very similar. But
even some of the action, Katie, not only the kung fu martial arts, but even when in the beginning when they're running from, I believe, the cops. Yeah, Blade throws Karen over to the other building, and then he jumps. That is straight out of Matrix. I feel like Trinity, jumps from building to building, and then of course bullets. There's a moment in Blade where like Deacon. Yes, in the daytime, he's able to slowly move. And yes. So, I know The Matrix was absolutely groundbreaking and a great movie. I don't love those sequels either, especially that new one. Wow, that was rough. But I think people forget that Blade did some of that stuff first the year prior. So
you were saying because The Matrix, they had started writing and storyboarding that years prior as well.
Okay.
So I don't know if somebody was in the room, fly on the room in one, and then went to the other one and was like, how about this idea? Like, I don't know, because it was very similar. But they claim like they came out at different times. Matrix was technically after Blade, but Matrix, they started storyboarding and writing
in the works for
years. But Blade started in 1992. They started writing and thinking about it. Matrix is the same. So I was so curious. There was no explanation, but I'm just wondering if someone was an assistant was in the room, somebody's assistant who like got fired and was pissed and went to, I don't know. Like, it
right?
just,
I know the similarities are kind of eerie, and just the timing of it all, you know, because Matrix came out not even a year after this. So, but yeah, you bring up a good point. These movies, especially these movies, Blade and The Matrix especially, took years to really develop and make and shoot.
It's definitely a weird coincidence, I guess. I don't know.
Because even Blade, because of that bad test screening with the original ending, Blade was supposed to come out, I think, like a year earlier, 97, maybe even 90. You know, so yeah, it took a while to get it finished. So. Yeah, it's so interesting. One last moment that I love, and it kind of is freaky, and I goes back to our buddy Deacon. I love that once he has the power at the end, and, you know, his eyes turn red, and then he's in the shadows, and his girlfriend Mercury, I think she says Deacon, and he rises, and he says, not anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, he whispers, not anymore. It's still... like, oh my God. Like, I thought he was going to kill her. I thought he was just going to kill anything he
Everybody.
sees, you know? Awesome. Well, thank you, my friend.
Yes, this was great. Thank you for having me on again. Lovely.
Oh, absolutely. You're such a movie whiz. Your movie trivia knowledge, your movie, like, it's amazing. I thought I was good, but geez, you win.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I just, IMDb trivia facts, man. And this movie, 25 years of obsession. So also new.
Oh my God. Yeah, you've had years of experience with this one.
I've been waiting my whole life for this moment.
Thanks so much for listening to or watching Release Date Rewind. And thank you to my movie-loving sister from another mister, the biggest vamp of them all, Katie Bruno. Thanks also to Straw Hat Media, Greg Clements, and Kyle Motzinger. Ratings and reviews always help indie podcasts like this one, so please leave me some stars or a thumbs up on whatever platform you're using. Follow me on Instagram at Release Date Rewind for bonus content about this movie and to get updates about what we'll talk about next time. And speaking of next time, prepare yourself for more fall chills and thrills. Bye.